Hello, hello, one and all. Greetings. My name's Russell Raphael, and I run a little group called North London Ulysses. Surprise, surprise, we spend our time reading this book, Ulysses, and this is a special week for, in this week, was the 16th of June, Bloomsday. And as luck would have it, in the pub, Bloomsday coincided with a reading of a pretty exciting part of the book because we try and do our readings in a calendar year. We're sort of in the middle of the book and we are approaching the home strait of Cyclops, which is, one might say, might it be the most exciting part of the book? Well, there's parts of Circe that would challenge that, and there's all sorts of other really excellent bits in the book, but this bit is up there. Not so much a reading as a performance. A little secret, I'm actually recording this slightly ahead of time, so I haven't yet read it live in the pub. I hope I can do it justice then, and I hope I can do it justice now, because it deserves a proper reading. So we are on, in the Penguin version, which I tend to use because the print is nice and large for reading in the pub, even though there is the odd typo in it, which is a bit frustrating. But I'm on page 429, and the Citizen has been on a right long rant about how terrible the Brits are and how the Irish and Ireland would have been so much better without them. And Bloom has been sort of playing, not quite devil's advocate, because he agrees with the Citizen to a reasonable degree, but can also see the other chap's point of view, because unlike the one-eyed, myopic Cyclops, who is the Citizen, who only sees the world through a very Fenian nationalist lens, Bloom has been thinking all day about the word parallax, and he sort of sees things from different points of view. Even though he might agree with one more than the other, he at least can visualize the other chap's perspective, which I hope you'll agree is a reasonably healthy attitude. But it has put him on a collision course with the Citizen and invoked all sorts of rather troubling responses from the Citizen, and the certain attitudes of the Citizen are bubbling under and will erupt in this session. The Citizen's views on women, the Citizen's views on immigrants and Jews in particular, and who has the right to call themselves Irish. What actually is a nation? What does it mean to be Irish? Are things that will be considered in these pages. And it's not just an academic debate. Things are getting a little hairy down at Barney Kiernan's, and Bloom is very much feeling the wrath of this. And one may even say it's slightly scary. There is an undercurrent of violence that could bubble over at any time. Added to which, there is a suspicion that Bloom has won a lot of money on a horse race. He kept it a secret to himself. Everyone else has lost their money, and Bloom is in the money, so they think, and yet he's not bought them a round of drinks in the pub. Pretty much the worst sin you can commit as a Dubliner in 1904. So I think that's a reasonable entry. We're on page 429, right down at the bottom. Another round has just been got in, and it says Bloom was talking and talking with John Wise, and that's where I shall start. Bloom was talking and talking with John Wise, and he quite excited with his Dundalkety mud-collared mug on him and his old plum eyes rolling about. Persecution, says he. All the history of the world is full of it, perpetuating national hatred among nations. But do you know what a nation means? Says John Wise. Yes, says Bloom. What is it? Says John Wise. A nation, says Bloom. A nation is the same people living in the same place. Oh, begad then, says Ned, laughing. If that's so, I'm a nation, for I'm living in the same place for the past 5 years. So, of course, everyone had a laugh at Bloom, and says he, trying to muck out of it, oh, we're also living in different places. Oh, that covers my case, says Joe. What is your nation, if I may ask? Says the citizen. Ireland, says Bloom. I was born here. Ireland. The citizen said nothing, only cleared the spit out of his gullet, and gob, he spat a red bank oyster out of him right in the corner. After you with the push, Joe, says he, taking out his handkerchief to swab himself dry. Here, citizen, says Joe, take that in your right hand and repeat after me the following words. The much treasured and intricately embroidered ancient Irish face-cloth attributed to Solomon of Dromer and Manus Tomlach og Madonna, authors of the Book of Ballymote, was then carefully produced and called forth prolonged admiration. No need to dwell on the legendary beauty of the corner pieces, the acme of art, wherein one can distinctly discern each of the four evangelists in turn, presenting to each of the four masters his evangelical symbol, a bog-oak sceptre, a North American puma, a far nobler king of beasts than the British article, be it said in passing, a Kerry calf, and a golden eagle from Carrantuil. The scenes depicted on the emunctory field showing our ancient duns and raths and cromlechs and grianons, and seats of learning and maledictive stones are as wonderfully beautiful and the pigments as delicate as when the Sligo illuminators gave free rein to their artistic fantasy long, long ago in the time of the Barmecides. Glendalough, the lovely lakes of Killarney, the ruins of Clonmacnoise, Cong Abbey, Glen Enor, and the 12 Pins, Island's Eye, the green hills of Tallaght, Crowpatrick, the brewery of Messrs. Arthur Guinness, Son and Company Limited, Loch Ness Banks, the Vale of Avoca, Isolde's Tower, the Mappas Obelisk, St. Patrick Dunn's Hospital, Cape Clear, the Glen of Ahalo, Lynch's Castle, the Scotch House, Rathdown Union Workhouse at Loughlinstown, Tullamore Jail, Castle Connor Rapids, Kilbally-McSconakill, the Cross at Monaster Boyce, Jury's Hotel, St. Patrick's Purgatory, the Salmon Leap, Maynooth College Refectory, Curley's Hole, the three birthplaces of the first Duke of Wellington, the Rock of Cashel, the Bog of Allen, the Henry Street Warehouse, Fingal's Cave. All these moving scenes are still there for us today, rendered more beautiful still by the waters of sorrow which have passed over them and by the rich incrustations of time. Shove us over the drink, says I. Which is which? That's mine, says Joe, as the devil said to the dead policeman. Do I belong to a race too, says Bloom, that is hated, persecuted, also now, this very moment, this very instant. Garby near burnt his fingers with the butt of his old cigar. Robbed, says he, plundered, insulted, persecuted, taking what belongs to us by right. At this very moment, says he, putting up his fist, sold off by auction off in Morocco, like slaves or cattle. Are you talking about the New Jerusalem? Says the citizen. I'm talking about injustice, says Bloom. Right, says John Wise. Stand up to it then with force, like men. Oh, that's an almanac picture for you. Mark for a soft-nosed bullet. Old lardy face standing up to the business end of a gun. Garby the door and a sweeping brush so he would, if he only had a nurse's apron on him. And then he collapses all of a sudden, twisting round all the opposite, as limp as a wet rag. But it's no use, says he. Force, hatred, history, all that. That's not life for men and women, insult and hatred, and everybody knows that it's the very opposite of that that is really life. What? Says Elf. Love, says Bloom. I mean, the opposite of hatred. I must go now, says he to John Wise. I just round to the court a moment to see if Martin's there. If he comes, just say I'll be back in a second, just a moment. Who's hindering you? And off he pops, like greased lightning. A new apostle to the Gentiles, says the citizen. Universal love. Well, says John Wise, isn't that what we're told? Love your neighbours. That chap, says the citizen. Beggar me neighbour is his motto. Love Moya. He's a nice pattern of a Romeo and Juliet. Love loves to love love. Nurse loves the new chemist. Constable 14A loves Mary Kelly. Gertie McDowell loves the boy that has the bicycle. MB loves a fair gentleman. Li Chi Hun lovey up kissy chapu chow. Jumbo the elephant loves Alice the elephant. Old Mr. Verschoyle with the ear trumpet loves old Mrs. Verschoyle with the turned-in eye. The man in the brown mackintosh loves a lady who is dead. His Majesty the King loves Her Majesty the Queen. Mrs. Norman W. Tupper loves Officer Taylor. You love a certain person, and this person loves that other person, because everybody loves somebody. But God loves everybody. Well, Joe, says I, you're very good head and song. More power, citizen. Hurrah there, says Joe. The blessing of God and Mary and Patrick on you, says the citizen. And he ups with his point to wet his whistle. Oh, we know those canters, says he, preaching and pecking your pocket. What about sanctimonious Cromwell and his Ironsides that put the women and children and degraded to the sword with the Bible text, God is love, pasted round the mouth of his cannon? The Bible. Did you read that skit in the United Irishman today about the Zulu chief that's visiting England? What's that, says Joe. So the citizen takes up one of his paraphernalia papers and he starts reading out. A delegation of the chief cotton magnates of Manchester was presented yesterday to His Majesty the Alakay of Abeokuta by Goldstick in Waiting, Lord Walkup on Eggs, to tender to His Majesty the heartfelt thanks of British traders for the facilities afforded to them in his dominions. The delegation partook of luncheon, at the conclusion of which the dusky potentate, in the course of a happy speech, freely translated by the British chaplain, the Reverend Ananias Praise-God Barebones, tendered his thanks to Massa Walkup and emphasised the cordial relations existing between Abeokuta and the British Empire, stating that he treasured as one of his dearest possessions an illuminated Bible, the volume of the Word of God and the secret of England's greatness, graciously presented to him by the white chief woman, the great squaw Victoria, with a personal dedication from the august hand of the royal donor. The Alakoi then drank a loving cup of first shot Usquebaugh to the toast, black and white, from the skull of his immediate predecessor in the dynasty, Kakachakachak, surnamed 40 Worts, after which he visited the chief factory of Cottonopolis and signed his mark in the visitor's book, subsequently executing an old Abeokutic war dance, in the course of which he swallowed several knives and forks amid hilarious applause from the girl hands. With a woman, says Ned, I wouldn't doubt her. Wonder did she put that Bible to the same use as I would. Same, only more so, says Lenihan. And thereafter in that fruitful land the broad-leaved mango flourished exceedingly. Is that boy Griffith? Says John Wise. No, said the citizen. It's not signed Shangana. It's only initialed P. And a very good initial too, says Joe. That's how it worked, says the citizen. Trade follows the flag. Well, says JJ, if they're any worse than those Belgians in the Congo Free State, they must be bad. Did you read that report by a man, what's his name is? Casement, said the citizen. He's an Irishman. Yes, that's the man, says JJ, raping the women and girls and flogging the natives on the belly to squeeze all the red rubber they can out of them. I know where he's gone, says Lennon, cracking his fingers. Who, says I? Bloom, says he. The courthouse is a blind. He had a few bob on throwaway, and he's gone to gather in the shekels. Is it that white-eyed Kaffir? Says the citizen, that never backed a horse in anger in his life. That's where he's gone, says Lennon. I met Bantam Lyons going to back that horse, only I put him off it, and he told me Bloom gave him the tip. Betcha what you like, he had 100 shillings to 5 on. He's the only man in Dublin has it. A dark horse. He's a bloody dark horse himself, says Joe. Mind, Joe, says I, show us the entrance out. They asks Terry. Goodbye, Ireland, I'm going to Gort. So I just went round to the back of the yard to pump ship and be gob. 100 shillings to 5. Well, I was letting off me throwaway. 20 to letting off me load. Gob, says I to myself. I knew he was uneasy in his 2 points off of Joe and 1 in flatteries off in his mind to get off the mark to 100 shillings. It's 5 quid. When they were in the dark horse, Pisserberg was telling me card party and letting on the child was sick. Gob must have done about a gallon. Flabby arse of a wife speaking down the tube. She's better or she's all a plan so he could get the moose with the Paul if he won or Jesus, full up he was. Trading without a licence. Oh, Ireland, my nation, says he. Never be up to those bloody, there's the last of it. Jerusalem, cuckoos. So anyhow, when I got back, they was at it ding dong. John Wise saying it was Bloom gave the idea for Sinn Féin to Griffith to put in his paper all kind of gerrymandering, packed juries and swindling the taxes off of the government and appointing councils all over the world to walk about selling Irish industries, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Gob, that puts the bloody kibosh on it if old Sloppy Eyes is mucking up the show. Give us a bloody chance. God save Ireland from the likes of that bloody mouseabout, Mr. Bloom, with his argo bargo, and his old fella before him perpetuating frauds, old Methuselah Bloom, the Robin Bagman that poisoned himself with the prussic acid, after he swamping the country with his baubles and his penny diamonds, loans by post on easy terms, any amount of money advanced on note to hand, distance no object, no security. Gobby's like Lanty McHale's goat that go a piece of the road with everyone. Well, it's a fact, said John Wise, and there's the man now that'll tell you about it, Martin Cunningham. Sure enough, the castle car drove up with Martin on it and Jack Power with him and a fella named Crofter or Crofton, pension out of the Collector General's, an Orangeman. Blackburn does have on the registration, and he drawing his pay, or Crawford, gallivanting around the country at the King's expense. Our travellers reached the rustic hostelry and alighted from their palfreys. How varlet, cried he, who by his mien seemed the leader of the party. Saucy knave, to us. So saying, he knocked loudly with his sword hilt upon the open lattice. Mine host came forth at the summons, girding him with his tabard. Give you good den, my masters, says he, with an obsequious bow. Bestir thyself, sirrah, cried he who had knocked. Look to our steeds, and for ourselves give us of your best, for, i' faith, we need it. Alack a day, good masters, said the host. My poor house has but a bare ladder. I know not what to offer your lordships. How now, fellow? Cried the second of the party, a man of pleasant countenance. So servist thou the king's messengers, Master Tapton? An instantaneous change overspread the landlord's visage. Oh, cry you mercy, gentlemen, he said humbly. And you be the king's messenger. Oh, God shield his majesty. You shall not want for aught. The king's friends, God bless his majesty, shall not go a fasting in my house, I warrant me. Then about, cried the traveller, who had not spoken, a lusty trencherman by his aspect, hast aught to give us? Mine host bowed again as he made answer. What you say, good masters, to a squab pigeon pasty, some collops of venison, a saddle of veal, widgeon with crisp hog's bacon, a boar's head with pistachios, a basin of jolly custard, a medlar of tansy, and a flagon of old Rhenish. Oh, gadzooks, cried the last speaker, that likes me well. Pistachios! Aha! cried he of the pleasant countenance, a poor house and a bare larder, quotha! Oh, 'tis a merry rogue. So in comes Martin, asking where was Bloom. Where is he? says Lenihan, defrauding widows and orphans. Isn't that a fact? Says John Wise. What I was telling the citizen about Bloom and the Sinn Fein. Oh, that's so, said Martin, or so they allege. Who made those allegations? says Elf. I, says Joe. I'm the alligator. And after all, says John Wise, why can't a Jew love his country like the next fella? Why not, says JJ, when he's quite sure which country it is? Is he a Jew or a Gentile or a Holy Roman or a Swaddler or what the hell is he? says Ned. Or who is he? No offence, Crofton. Oh, we don't want him, says Crofton, the Orangeman or Presbyterian. Who is Junius? says JJ. He's a perverted Jew, says Martin, from a place in Hungary, and it was he drew up all the plans according to the Hungarian system. We know that in the castle. Isn't he a cousin of Bloom the dentist? says Jack Power. Not at all, says Martin. Only namesakes. His name was Virag, the father's name that poisoned himself. He changed it by deed poll, the father did. Ha! That's the new Messiah for Ireland, says the citizen. Ireland of saints and sages. Well, they're still waiting for their Redeemer, says Martin. For that matter, so are we. Yes, says JJ, and every male that's born, they think it may be their Messiah, and every Jew is in a tall state of excitement, I believe, till he knows if he's a father or a mother. Expecting every moment will be his next, says Lennon. Oh, begod, says Ned, you should have seen Bloom before that son of his that died was born. I met him one day in the South City markets, buying a tin of Neves, food 6 weeks before the wife was delivered. On ventre some air, says JJ. Do you call that a man? says the citizen. I wonder did he ever put it out of sight, says Joe. Well, there were 2 children born anyhow, says Jack Power. And who does he suspect? says the citizen. Gab, there's many a true word spoken in jest. One of those mixed Midlands he is, lying up in the hotel. Pissa was telling me once a month with headache like a totty with her courses. Do you know what I'm telling you? It'd be an act of God to take a hold of a fella like that and throw him in the bloody sea. Justifiable homicide, so it would. Then sloping off with his £5 without putting up a pint of stuff like a man. Give us your blessing. Not as much as would blind your eye. Charity to the neighbour, says Martin. But where is he? We can't wait. A wolf in sheep's clothing, says the citizen. That's what he is. Virag from Hungary. Ashaswaris, I call him. Cursed by God. Have you time for a brief libation, Martin? says Ned. Only one, says Martin. We must be quick. JJ&S. You, Jack, Crofton. 3/2 Terry. St. Patrick would want to land again at Ballykinlar and convert us, says the citizen, after allowing things like that to contaminate our shores. Well, says Martin, rapping for his glass, God bless all here is my prayer. Amen, says the citizen. And I'm sure he will, says Joe. And at the sound of the sacring bell, headed by a crucifer with acolytes, thurifers, boat bearers, readers, ostiarii, deacons and subdeacons, the blessed company drew nigh of mitred abbots and priors and guardians and monks and friars, the monks of Benedict of Spoleto, Carthusians and Carmelesi, Cistercians and Olivetans, Oratorians and Volumbrosans, and the friar of Augustine, Brigitiners, Premonstratensians, Servi, Trinitarians, and the children of Peter Nolasco, and therewith from Carmel Mount the children of Elijah Prophet, led by Albert Bishop and by Teresa of Avila, Calçade and other, and friars brown and grey, sons of poor Francis, Capuchins, Cordeliers, Minimes, and Observants, and the daughters of Clara, and the sons of Dominic, the friars, preachers, and the sons of Vincent, and the monks of St. Wulstan, and Ignatius his children, and the confraternity of the Christian brothers, led by the Reverend Brother Edmund Ignatius Rice. And after came all saints and martyrs, virgins and confessors, St. Cyr and St. Isidore Orator, and St. James the Less, and St. Phocas of Sinope, and St. Julian Hospitator, and St. Felix de Cantalice, and St. Simon Stylites, and St. Stephen Protomartyr, and St. John of God, and St. Ferio, and St. Lugarde, and St. Theodotus, and St. Volmar, and St. Richard, and St. Vincent de Paul, and St. Martin of Todi, and St. Martin of Tours, and St. Alfred, and St. Joseph, and St. Denis, and St. Cornelius, and St. Leopold, and St. Bernard, and St. Terence, and St. Edward, and St. Owen Caniculus, and St. Anonymous, and St. Eponymous, and St. Pseudonymous, and St. Homonymus, and St. Paronymus, and St. Synonymous, and St. Lawrence of Toul, and St. James of Dingle and Compostela, and St. Columcille, and St. Columba, and St. Celestine, and St. Coleman, and St. Kevin, and St. Brendan, and St. Frigidian, and St. Senon, and St. Facna, and St. Columbanus, and St. Gall, and St. Fursey, and St. Finton, and St. Fiacre, and St. John Paul Nepomuk, and St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Ives of Brittany, and St. Michan, and St. Herman Joseph, and three patrons of holy youth, St. Aloysius Gonzaga, and St. Stanislaus Kostka, and St. John Berchmans, and the saints Gervasius, Servasius, and Bonifacius, and St. Bride, and St. Kieran, and St. Canice of Kilkenny, and St. Jarlath of Tuam, and St. Finbar, and St. Papin of Ballymun, and Brother Aloysius Pacificus, and Brother Louis Bellicosus, and the saints Rose of Lima, and Vertibo of St. Martha of Bethany, and St. Mary of Egypt, and St. Lucy, and St. Bridget, and St. Attracta, and St. Dimpna, and Saint Eta, and St. Marian Calpensis, and the Blessed Sister Teresa of the Child Jesus, and St. Barbara, and St. Scholastica, and St. Ursula, with 11,000 virgins. And all came with nimbi and aureoles and gloriae, bearing palms and harps and swords and olive crowns, in robes whereon were woven the blessed symbols of their efficacies, inkhorns, arrows, loaves, cruces, fetters, axes, trees, bridges, babes in a bathtub, shells, wallets, shears, keys, dragons, lilies, buckshots, beards, hogs, lamps, bellows, beehives, soup ladles, stars, snakes, anvils, boxes of Vaseline, bells, crutches, forceps, stags' horns, watertight boots, hawks, millstones, eyes on a dish, wax candles, aspergills, unicorns. And as they wended their way by Nelson's Pillar, Henry Street, Mary Street, Capel Street, Little Britain Street, chanting the introit in Epiphania Domini, which beginneth Surge Illuminare, and thereafter most sweetly the gradual omnes, which saith the Saba Venient, they did divers wonders, such as casting out devils, raising the dead to life, multiplying fishes, healing the halt and the blind, discovering various articles which had been mislaid, interpreting and fulfilling the scriptures, blessing and prophesying. And last, beneath a canopy of cloth of gold, came the Reverend Father O'Flynn, attended by Malachi and Patrick. And when the good fathers had reached the appointed place, the house of Bernard Kiernan and Co. Limited, 8, 9, and 10 Little Britain Street, wholesale grocers, wine and brandy shippers, licensed for the sale of beer, wine, and spirits for consumption on the premises, the celebrant blessed the house and censed the mullioned windows, and the groins, and the vaults, and the arrises, and the capitals, and the pediments, and the cornices, and the engrailed arches, and the spires, and the cupolas, and sprinkled the lintels thereof with blessed water, and prayed that God might bless that house, as he had blessed the house of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and make the angels of his light to inhabit therein. And entering, he blessed the viands and the beverages, and the company of all blessed answered his prayers. Auditorium nostrum in nomine Domini, qui fecit oculum et terram, Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. And he laid his hands upon the blessed, and gave thanks, and prayed, and they all with him prayed. Duas quos verbo sanctificanta omnia benedictionem tuam effendi super creaturas istas, et praesta ut quisquis e secundum legem et voluntatem tuam cum gratiarum actione usus fuerit per invocationem sanctissimi nominis tui corporis sanitatem et anime tutelam te auctore percipiat per Christum Dominum nostrum. And so say all of us, says Jack. 1,000 a year, Lambert, says Crofton or Crawford. Right, says Ned, taking up his John Jameson, and butter for fish. I was just looking round to see who the happy thought would strike, when, be damned, but he comes in again, letting on to be in a hell of a hurry. I was just round at the courthouse, says he. Looking for you. I hope I'm not. No, says Martin, we're ready. Courthouse, my eye, and your pockets hanging down with gold and silver, mean bloody scut. Stand us a drink itself. Oh, devil a sweet fear. There's a Joe for you. Oh, for number one. Cute as a shithouse rat. 100 to 5. Don't tell anyone, says the citizen. I beg your pardon, says he. Come on, boys, says Martin, seeing as it was looking blue. Come along now. Don't tell anyone, says the citizen, letting a bawl out of him. It's a secret. And the bloody dog woke up and let a growl. But boy, oh, says Martin, and he got him out as quick as he could, Jack Power and Crofton, or whatever you call him, and him in the middle of them letting on to be all at sea up with them on the bloody jaunting car. Off with you, says Martin to the jarvey. The milk-white dolphin tossed his mane, and rising in the golden poop, the helmsman spread the bellying sail upon the wind, and stood off forward with all sails set, the spinnaker to larboard. Many comely nymphs drew nigh to starboard and to larboard, and clinging to the sides of the noble bark, they linked their shining forms as doth the cunning wheelwright when he fashions about the heart of his wheel the equidistant rays whereof each one is sister to another, and he binds them all with an outer ring, and giveth speed to the feet of men, whenas they ride to a hosting or contend for the smile of ladies fair. Even so did they come and set them, those willing nymphs, the undying sisters, and they laughed, sporting in the circle of their foam, and the bark clave the waves. But begob, I was just lowering the heel of the point when I saw the citizen getting up to waddle to the door, puffing and blowing with the dropsy, and he cursing the curse of Cromwell on him, bell book and candle in Irish, spitting and spatting out of him, and Joe and little Elf round him like a leprechaun, trying to pacify him. Let me alone, says he. And we got as far as the door, and they holding him, and he bawls out of him, 3 cheers for Israel. Ara, sit down on the parliamentary side of your ass, for Christ's sake, and don't be making a public exhibition of yourself. Jesus, there's always some bloody clown or other kicking up a bloody murder about bloody nothing. Gab, it'd turn the porter sour in your guts, so it would. And all the ragamuffins and sluts of the nation round the door, and Martin telling the Jarvey to drive ahead, and the citizen bawling, and Alf and Joe at him to whist, and he on his high horse about the Joes and the loafers calling for a speech, and Jack Power trying to get him to sit down on the car and hold his bloody jaw, and a loafer with a patch over his eye starts singing, "If the man in the moon was a Jew, Jew, Jew," and the slut shouts out of her, "Hey, mister, your fly's open, mister." And says he, Mendelssohn was a Jew, and Karl Marx, and Mercadante, and Spinoza, and the Saviour was a Jew, and his father was a Jew. Your guard. He had no father, said Martin. That'll do now. Drive ahead. Who's God? Says the citizen. Well, his uncle was a Jew, says he. Your God was a Jew. Christ was a Jew like me. Gab, the citizen made a plunge back into the shop. Be Jesus, says he, I'll brain the bloody Jew man for using the holy name. Be Jesus, I'll crucify him, so I will. Give us that biscuit box here. Stop, stop, says Joe. A large and appreciative gathering of friends and acquaintances from the metropolis and greater Dublin assembled in their thousands to bid farewell to Najosulus Saga Aram Lipoti Virag, late of Messrs. Alexander Tom's printers to His Majesty, on the occasion of his departure for the distant clime of Shozamambro Jugulas, meadow of murmuring waters. The ceremony, which went off with great eclat, was characterized by the most affecting cordiality. An illuminated scroll of ancient Irish vellum, the work of Irish artists, was presented to the distinguished phenomenologist on behalf of a large section of the community, and was accompanied by the gift of a silver casket, tastefully executed in the style of ancient Celtic ornament, a work which reflects every credit on the makers, Messrs. Jacob Agus Jacob. The departing guest was the recipient of a hearty ovation, many of those who were present being visibly moved when the select orchestra of Irish pipes struck up the well-known strains of Come Back to Erin, followed immediately by Rakoshi's March. Tar barrels and bonfires were lighted along the coastline of the Four Seas on the summits of the Hill of Hope, Three Rock Mountain, Sugarloaf, Bray Head, the mountains of Mourne, the Galties, the Ox and Donegal and Sperrin Peaks, the Nagels and Boggarays, the Connemara Hills, the reeks of McGillicuddy, Slieve Aughty, Slieve Burner and Slieve Bloom. Amid cheers that rent the welkin, responded to by answering cheers from a big muster of henchmen on the distant Cambrian and Caledonian hills, the mastodontic pleasure ship slowly moved away, saluted by a final floral tribute from the representatives of the fair sex, who were present in large numbers, while, as it proceeded down the river, escorted by a flotilla of barges, the flags of the ballast office and custom house were dipped in salute, as were also those of the electrical power station at the Pigeon House. Vistron latastra, Kedves Voraton. Vistron latastra. Gone, but not forgotten. Gob, the devil wouldn't stop him till he got hold of the bloody tin anyhow, and out with him, and little Alf hanging on to his elbow, and he shouting like a stuck pig, as good as any bloody play in the Queen's Royal Theatre. Where is he till I murder him? And Ned and J.G. paralysed with the laughing. Bloody wars, says I'll be in for the last gospel. But as luck would have it, the Jarvey got the nag's head round the other way and off with him. Hold on, citizen, says Joe. Stop. Begob he drew his hand and made a swipe and let fly. Mercy o' God, the sun was in his eyes or he'd have left him for dead. Gob he near sent it into the county Longford. The bloody nag took fright, and the old mongrel after the car like bloody hell, and all the populace shouting and laughing, and the old tin box clattering along the street. The catastrophe was terrific and instantaneous in its effect. The observatory of Dunsink registered in all 11 shocks, all of the grade of Macaulay's scale, and there is no record extant of a similar seismic disturbance in our island since the earthquake of 1534, the year of the rebellion of Silken Thomas. The epicentre appears to have been that part of the metropolis which constitutes the Inns Quay ward and parish of St. Michan, covering a surface of 41 acres, 2 roods, and 1 square pole or perch. All the lordly residences in the vicinity of the Palace of Justice were demolished, and that noble edifice itself, in which at the time of the catastrophe important legal debates were in progress, is literally a mass of ruins beneath which it is to be feared all the occupants have been buried alive. From the reports of eyewitnesses, it transpires that the seismic waves were accompanied by a violent atmospheric perturbation of cyclonic character. An article of headgear, since ascertained to belong to the much respected Clerk of the Crown and Peace, Mr. George Fottrell, and a silk umbrella with gold handle with the engraved initials, coat of arms, and house number of the erudite and worshipful chairman of Quarter Sessions, Sir Frederick Faulkner, Recorder of Dublin, have been discovered by search parties in remote parts of the island, respectively, the former on the third basaltic ridge of the Giant's Causeway, the latter embedded to the extent of 1 foot 3 inches in the sandy beach of Holopen Bay, near the old head of Kinsale. Other eyewitnesses deposed that they observed an incandescent object of enormous proportions hurtling through the atmosphere at a terrifying velocity in a trajectory directed southwest by west. Messages of condolence and sympathy were being hourly received from all parts of the different continents, and the sovereign pontiff has been graciously pleased to decree that a special Missa Pro Defunctis shall be celebrated simultaneously by the ordinaries of each and every cathedral church of all the episcopal dioceses subject to the spiritual authority of the Holy See, in suffrage of the souls of those faithful departed who have been so unexpectedly called away from our midst. The work of salvage, removal of debris, human remains, etc., has been entrusted to Messrs. Michael Mead and Son, 159 Great Brunswick Street, and Messrs. T.C. Martin, 77, 78, 79, and 80 North Wall, assisted by the men and officers of the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry under the general supervision of H.R.H. Rear Admiral the Right Honourable Sir Hercules Hannibal Habeas Corpus Anderson, KG, KP, KT, PC, KCB, MP, JP, MB, DSO, SOD, MFH, MRIA, BL, Muse Doc, PLG, FTCD, FRUI, FRCPI, and FRCSI. You never saw the like of it in all your born puff. Gob, if he got that lottery ticket on the side of his paw, he'd remember the gold cup, he would so. But begob, the citizen would have been lagged for assault and battery, and Joe for aiding and abetting. The Jarvey saved his life by furious driving, as sure as Gob made Moses, what? Oh, Jesus, he did. And he led a volley of oaths after him. Did I kill him, says he, or what? And he shouting to the bloody dog, after him, Gary, after him, boy. And the last we saw was the bloody car round in the corner, and old Sheepface on it gesticulating, and the bloody mongrel after it, with his legs back for all he was bloody well worth, to tear him limb from limb. 100-5. Jesus, he took the value out of him, I promise you. When lo, there came about them all a great brightness, and they beheld the chariot wherein he stood ascend to heaven. And they beheld him in the chariot, clothed upon in the glory of the brightness, having raiment as of the sun, fair as the moon, and terrible, that for awe they durst not look upon him. And there came a voice out of heaven calling, Elijah, Elijah. And he answered with a main cry, Abba, Adonai. And they beheld him, even him, Ben Bloom Elijah, amid clouds of angels, ascend to the glory of the brightness at an angle of 45 degrees over Donahoe's in Little Green Street, like a shot off a shovel. That's it. There we are. The end of episode 12. I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as I enjoyed reading it. I hope I did it some sort of justice. I think it's a fitting tribute to Bloomsday. And if you happen to listen to this on 16th of June, wherever you are in the world, then I hope that worked for you, and I wish you a delightful Bloomsday, whatever you're getting up to. If you did like it, there's stacks more videos like this, reading videos and commentary videos as we make our way through this wonderful book at North London Ulysses. We're about halfway through now, but all the back videos are there. If you want to listen to them, go to patreon.com /North London Ulysses. Check it out. Or if you happen to be in the Muswell Hill area of North London, come to the pub and maybe you can join us for the live readings. So there we are. Happy Bloomsday, and I'll see you next time. The next video will be the commentary video of everything I've just read. Thank you very much. Bye.